This one's close to home for me. So I have agencies, I run agencies, that's like my core thing. And we haven't been able to adopt or use AI because there's so many fucking tools. And I'm like, what am I gonna use? Why do I use this? How do I use this? So I really need someone to kind of and explain it to me practically of what's going on. One second, let me check that out. Talk. How about right here? There's this weird dead zone. So for whoever's next, let's just stay and float in this area. But we let a lot of people come through, and clearly there's a huge around wanting to do more with AI, and this is what that talk is going to be. There's going to be a huge continuation here, specifically around how AI can be around creative analysis and some really cool content stuff. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Jon and Peter. Let's talk some ads, guys.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jon Reilly from Akkio. I'm joined by Peter Delle. He's from LaVie. And today we're going to talk a little bit about using AI, generative AI, with data specifically. And this is an area where I think like the barrier to entry for AI is generative AI and using things like GPT to create copy. Pretty low lift in order to start using it, but it's also not very differentiated because everyone can use it. So as soon as you start leveraging it and all of your competitors start leveraging it, it's kind of a level playing field again. Today, I'm hoping to leave you with 3 key takeaways. The first is that if you're not adopting AI in the first place, and specifically AI with data, you're missing the boat and you should be all over top of this. The second is that AI is not just a content engine. If you combine it with data, it's a force multiplier for your business. And then third, we're going to leave you with 3 examples or recipes of how you can use AI combined with data specifically to improve ROAS, all sorts of other metrics inside of your clients' businesses in ways that are very important to them. Okay, so first let's set the landscape. Most marketing challenges actually turn out to be data challenges. I know there's obviously a big creative component to marketing. But as all of you know, when working with a client, the data and the way that you use data is incredibly meaningful in your outcome, right? You can have 3 different sets of creative. You don't know which one's going to perform best. If you could identify that ahead of time without spending the money to test all 3, that would be very advantageous. Being smart with data is how you win in marketing, and it's getting even more important as more data is generated every year. Most marketing teams today are not really leveraging that data to any large effect. Often they turn to agencies for help, but many agencies are not using AI combined with that data to really deliver results. And so I'm going to walk you through several examples. I got into the technology services business in Akkio because I took over marketing at a company and ran right into a bunch of data problems. And that was the genesis of me founding Akkio. So I'm going to tell you about some of those problems. And I think you'll find these problems are very similar to problems that your clients face today. Let's start with lead scoring, right? You know, you're generating a bunch of leads. Specifically in the company I was working at, it's called Markforged, just a 3D printing company. We had a bunch of leads coming from a bunch of different sources. And one of the sources that was the most cost effective for us to generate a lead from was Facebook. Lots of leads from Facebook. But the quality of leads coming from Facebook were actually fairly poor. Mixed inside of those poor leads, though, were some really good, high quality, high converting leads. And how I ended up running marketing is the person before me turned off all of the poorly performing on average channels, which contained high volumes, but also contained good leads, and then the pipeline starved, right? And I turned them all back on and realized the problem wasn't the fact that we were generating a lot of low-cost leads. The problem was specifically the fact that we couldn't filter them out to figure out which ones were good, right? Pull those to the top and interact directly with them. And this is a common problem across all of the different sources you have for advertising. In fact, the most expensive, highest quality channels that generate the best leads often have low volume, and it's the flip side on the like low cost channels, right? So you have a data problem really, which is how do you filter out the high quality leads out of the mess? A secondary problem caused by this is we have a sales team. They're following up with all of these leads. They're calling them in random order, whenever they come in, because of course the faster you can touch a lead, the better. But they're overloaded, so they can't actually get to them with any degree of speed. They're spending most of their time talking to unqualified leads, not great for the business efficiency, right? Very common problem. I'm sure you all face this with clients. But if you could stack rank them, in their order of probability for conversion, your problem would be solved, right? You'd have very easy path forward. That is actually a perfect challenge to address with machine learning. If you haven't used machine learning, basically you take past patterns, so you take your past lead capture information, you learn the patterns in it that are predictive of conversion, and then you apply those very same patterns to your new leads and score them by probability to convert, and then you can just stack rank them and call from the top down. And we'll look how well that works in a second. We actually had a second problem, also in the lead gen side. We decided to generate leads, we were going to give out these 3D metal printed bottle openers. We made metal 3D printers. They were really cool, very expensive. And our target customer was working in a manufacturing line, in a manufacturing facility. They needed metal tooling, and they could afford to buy an industrial 3D printer. These things cost $100,000 each, right? So we set up a lead capture form, sign up as a lead, and get a free bottle opener. But what happens is a bunch of people who could never afford a 3D printer in the first place want a really cool 3D printed bottle opener and start filling out the form, right? It was like a really easy way to get a lead form up on the website, but practically the implementation of it was tough because we got way too many requests to fulfill them all. Each part, like the printing process was not super straightforward. It cost us about $10 to deliver, so it was like a high cost generative source. And so we're starting to think to ourselves, how are we going to solve this problem? We can't make enough of these parts, and we've got a bunch of people asking for them who are in no way qualified. Okay, great. We're going to have an easy answer. We're going to add a form that asks you to describe your application, right? Seems straightforward enough. We'll take the application description, we will look at it, and we'll decide if you're going to be a fit for the company or not. If you're a fit, then we're going to send you the part. We're going to follow up with you with sales. If you're not, we're going to send you a nice email saying, hey, you know, this is an industrial printer. You're probably not a fit. Tell us if we got that wrong. Only problem is the sales team cannot actually click the box fit or not in the CRM to send the part. I don't know why. They just can't do it. We told them many times to try it. They would never do it. So what we needed really was a way to differentiate from the person who wanted to get a birthday present for their boyfriend to someone who was working on the production line, right? Again, this is a perfect problem for AI and ML because you can train an ML model to take text examples that are good fits with your application and text examples that are bad fits with your application. And you just automate the process, right? You can just feed in, I am interested in 3D printing for my machine shop, and you can generate an output right away. That's 100% fit, follow up. You can automate the entire workflow, right? So the insight that caused me to found Akkio in the first place is that all marketers really face these problems and that the data science resources themselves to attack them are super scarce inside of any business, right? Businesses in general are always on the left side of this prioritization list, which means they generally have some data science resources. The small ones don't, but the larger ones do. But those data scientists are very scarce resources, and they're working on the highest priority problems in the business. In my experience, they're typically focusing almost entirely on product-oriented problems. And the reason they do that is because your product is your differentiated edge in the market and it's high leverage, right? So it's not surprising that if you have a few scarce resources, you put them on your highest leverage differentiator. But what it means is that the analysts, the operators, the long tail of the people actually working inside the business are left without the data science tools or capabilities to start attacking these problems. They often reach out to agencies or consultancies. Before generative AI happened, a lot of what was sold from a lot of big consultancies was actually data science projects, right? And they charge millions of dollars to do these data science projects for various places in your org where you didn't want to hire a data scientist. So that's why we founded Akkio. And today, what I really want to do is talk through how you can use AI, generative AI, and combine it with data to solve a lot of these types of problems, explicitly showing examples that have worked really well in the past, and get you thinking about all the different ways you can leverage AI and data together. You know, we're building a platform ourselves to try and make it really easy to do all this without being a data scientist, but the technology curve is meeting us in the middle, right? It's becoming easier and easier for normal people to do these tasks for downstream clients in a way that's like really meaningful and impactful and shows really clear results. And the key unlock really is that generative AI actually takes a lot of the complexity out of the problem set. So it lets you do things like write Python code to parse a data set in order to generate an answer. And so it's really reinventing the way that people work with generating content, but also reinventing the way people put effort into anything. And this image on the left is like a mid-journey output for part from Pixar's data analyst, show me an image. But the workflow is the important part to pay attention to, right? Because in the past, you had intent, which is like, I'd like to stack rank my leads. You had effort, which was almost impossible barrier to overcome. Data science education, basically command level prompt programming in order to actually get a model in place, understanding how it works, and then apply that through some complex programming to let it work in your system. And then you had your end result, which was like really good for your business, but nobody has the resources to do it. But today it's much more translating into intent directly into result. And that's going to happen with data too, not just with generating content and text. So when you apply it, it's a force multiplier, because if you can extract the value latent in your data, that is a unique differentiator for your business. Like at the beginning, I mentioned everybody has access to GPT-4, right? Everybody has access to these generative platforms, so it's a level playing field. The unique differentiator for each business actually lives in the unique knowledge they have about their custom market, right? And that's their data. And so if you can take that data and leverage it to result, you're going to have a competitive advantage against another business who's not doing it. So generative business intelligence as a term, if you don't know it, is just taking generative AI and applying it to business intelligence so that you can get the same results you do with generating a piece of content when you're working with data. Simple enough, right? And generative BI can solve an incredibly wide range of data problems. It can do things like score leads, like I was talking about, so you can optimize your marketing funnel. It can parse text. And it can do pretty much any task you can come up with where you have a set of data that is instructive of how things have been working, and you want to understand how things are going to work in the future. You can even use it to build forecasts. And the key point that I want to emphasize and that I hope you take away today is that the agencies adopting AI now are going to be more successful. The agencies who are able to adopt it with data are going to be the most successful, and the time to move is happening right now. You have the right expertise already with your customers. You know their segments. You know their markets. You're at the forefront of new technology, and they rely on agencies to bring cutting-edge tech into their business. That's why you hire an agency. That's why I've always hired an agency in my career, is because I did not have the internal expertise necessary. So the opportunity to adopt AI with data and bring that value to your clients is a massive differentiator, and it's going to accelerate your ability to not only sell, but deliver value down the chain. And you can leverage it to build scale on these complex tasks faster with fewer people. Peter will tell us a little bit about that when he gets up here. So we're going to start off by looking at what's possible today. I'd like to ask Peter to come up here. Peter is from LaVie. He's a partner agency of Akkio, and he's going to walk you through how he's used some AI with data in order to achieve great results. Thank you, Peter.
Awesome. To begin, I want to thank Jon for inviting me out here, and to Akkio also. Jon talked to you about the data side. I'm going to talk to you guys about an elephant. In Oklahoma, they wanted to do a science experiment. There's these researchers at, I think, the University of Oklahoma. They wanted to see what would happen, if you gave an elephant LSD, right? So they sat down. Somehow, I don't want to know how, they knew exactly how much LSD a cat could have. This is just common knowledge. And so they pulled out their calculators and they said, an elephant's X times bigger than a cat. We're going to give the elephant X times more LSD than a cat could have, right? And so they did this experiment, and the results were really fatal. The elephant passed away within the course of an hour, right? And the core of the issue is this issue of scale, where a body mass, right, the size of an elephant is X times bigger than a cat, but LSD or any substance is not absorbed through body mass, right? That's a surface area, it's a contact thing, right? And the surface area, the contact, is not whatever X times bigger they thought it was. And so The point of this story, or why I'm telling you this story, is because we make assumptions like this all the time as advertisers, right? I've been doing media buying for about 15 years. When I get a new client, I think about what variables do I want to test. Bid strategy, audience type, creative concept, a whole slew of things, right? Different audiences, different keywords maybe. We'll map them all out. And then what we have now is we have these tools that will show us those blind spots, or maybe the false assumptions that we made, or things that we didn't even consider that should have been on the list to begin with. Okay, so the first part I'm going to talk to you about, I think of it as like 2 cycles of data, right? The first cycle is where we take that data, we see what's working, we make our optimizations. The use case I'm going to talk to you guys about right now is all around ad optimization. We'll show you a case study where we took our Facebook ad data, we put that Facebook ad data into Akkio. The first step of that is just, how's it doing, right? We make our optimizations. You'll see on here, it's a whole lot faster, right? You can pull this data into a pivot table. You can make a pivot table. You can teach someone how to make a pivot table, which, trust me, it takes a little bit of time to try to teach someone how to make a pivot table. And so there is an old way of doing this. I would say that Akkio is a whole lot more forgiving, right? I've had pivot tables where the URL has a trailing space, and now it's 2 line items in there, and you don't know exactly how much is summarized there. Also, we aggregate the insights. So it used to be that we launch an ad, and we wait for that ad to reach statistical confidence, right? And then we turn it off or we do something with it. Now we take that data across all the different ad sets, and we see across the board how's the ad or whatever the variable is. It could be a piece of copy within that ad. It could be really anything, right? Any variable. As soon as that variable reaches that point of statistical confidence, then I make that decision across the board, right? And then the last piece of it is what we already talked about, right? Identifying the blind spots. So the next piece of this is that side of it, right? This is kind of the second cycle of the data evaluation. And this really leverages the predict feature in Akkio. So I want to talk about how easy it is, right? That's one of the things that I would talk most about with Akkio is just the ease of use. If you can connect a data set, you don't need to be a data scientist. You just connect whatever. You have an Excel export, you can upload it, you can connect a data source in here, and then maybe some manipulation is needed. I want a CPA column, or I want a ROAS column, or something like that, right? Sometimes you want to do some slight modifications to it. And after you've done that, you can go 2 routes. You can go the first route, the first stage, which we just talked about, where you make reports, you make a dashboard, and you can give that dashboard to a client. I've had clients where we onboard them, and before we do our kickoff call, we have a dashboard built out in Akkio. Because I've used a lot of these business intelligence tools, right? Some of them take 6 months to onboard as an agency. Others take a month or 2 weeks to build out a dashboard. Here, I'm not a data scientist. I can build out a dashboard in the course of an hour or course of a couple of hours for a client. So that's the first route. Then the second route is this predict mode. And so what you do is you take that same data set, you plug it in here, and you say, what variable do you want to predict? ROAS, CPA, CPL, whatever the variable is, you set that. You'll see on here, there's the ignore section. Some of the data you want to ignore, right? Because otherwise, if your goal is ROAS, oh, the ad with the best CPA, that's what you want to optimize towards. So some of these variables correlate too closely. You can get rid of CPA, conversion rate, some of those other numbers. And then you will be left with these variables that most closely correlate to, let's say, ROAS for this example. The case study that I'll talk to you about in a second is a client where we wanted to see, like, what ads should we be prioritizing? What should we be doing there? And this is one of those clients where I mapped out a whole bunch of variables that we wanted to test. And then what we found is that there are some copy angles that actually were a whole lot higher in terms of how much it correlated to ROAS than any of the other variables. I personally thought like the using certain bid strategies is probably high up on there, or like remarketing audience versus something else. And these variables that I expected were ranked lower than the ad copy angles that came out of it. And so that's what I mean by the blind spots, right? Is like, sure, there's things that you would think about. Bid strategy was on the list, lower down on the list. So there's some of these variables you'd think about, and then there's the ones that you don't even think about. I was talking to someone this morning with an agency, and what we do is we just export from Facebook ads, take the whole thing. Your ad performance data with your campaign names, your ad set names, your bid strategies, export the whole thing, upload it into Akkio, run through predict mode, and then see which one of these variables from that big data set is going to correlate most closely. So for this client, this was an e-commerce client that we brought in, and I would put a couple of caveats on this, right? I didn't use Akkio a year ago. This is all fairly new, right? And we could have cherry-picked some results that would inflate some of these numbers. This is just the case study that we're talking about today. And so when we ran this client through this ad optimization cycle, we achieved their ROAS target for the first time ever. Other agencies had run spend for this client. They never hit the goal. The client had run spend. They never hit the goal. We had run spend, and we improved ROAS using our traditional strategy, but we still were a little bit south of their ROAS target. And then when we plugged the data into Akkio and we started making these aggregated decisions based off of the aggregated data, then we were able to hit their ROAS goal for the first time. We were able to drive these results that you see up here and a pretty significant improvement in ROAS performance with that. So at this point, I got to give some credit to a researcher named Jeffrey West down in, he works with the Santa Fe Institute in New Mexico, and he published this book, Scale, which I read 100 books last year. This is the #1 most recommended book that I can recommend this year. And in this book, Jeffrey West talks about different rates of scale and different principles of scale, because ideas scale differently than companies, which scale differently than biological organisms like that elephant, right? And for us, as an agency, I think that this is the paradigm shifting opportunity for us, right? If you're playing around with ChatGPT or maybe Midjourney or something, like having anecdotal little fun with these tools is not going to help you. This is really the time, and honestly, I think a year ago at this conference, that's when it was the time to really operationalize our use of these AI tools. And so just like with the elephant, body mass, surface area don't scale at the same rates. Ideas don't scale at the same rate as our companies either, right? And so I think that social media illustrates this pretty well. With social media, there is the trend of social media and the technology that scaled way faster than MySpace as a company, or Facebook, or Twitter. Any of these companies scaled a whole lot more slowly than the exponential scale of the technology that is social media, right? And that's because, until now, there's been this human element. If you want to scale a company, you need to have a hiring manager who takes interviews. How many interviews can you take in a day? There's a limit on that, right? And then you have to onboard this person. And you can't onboard that many people in any given month, right? And so there's these human elements that have limited how quickly our companies can scale, and then even the scale of the output and the results that our companies can deliver, which now we have the opportunity to scale that output and scale our teams independent of that, right? Now we have these opportunities, which we show just one use case, right, with 200% increase. But we can deploy this in almost all areas of our agency, right? For my company, we really are trying to operationalize everything that we do as an agency using various AI tools. Akkio serves an important function in that, but it's just a piece of that broader marketing technology stack, right? I kind of consider this the ad optimization, some account management, because there's a lot of account management stuff you can do with this data because clients are asking for data all the time. And then we also use it a bit on the business development side and the prospecting side. Outside of that, there's a whole lot of other areas of agency operations that also can use AI to drive added efficiency, right? When we bring it into creative production, we can get 10x output. In other areas, it's maybe 3x or 5x. Campaign building is faster, almost all of our areas. The directive I gave my team is 20%. We want 20% added efficiency when we build out a system using some AI tool there. And really, that 20% number is quite a low estimate. I think there's nowhere that we've been at 20%. Everything has been 2x or higher, right? And so, yeah, that's what I would say is, for us as agencies, is really the time to operationalize our use of AI. Akkio is a great use case for that, which I talked about a pretty narrow view of Akkio on this ad optimization piece. I'm going to hand things back over to Jon to talk about a couple more of these use cases.
All right, thank you, Peter. Continuing his slides, these are just a bunch of different areas where you can address adding AI to your agency's business practices to make you more efficient. I'll click the button a bunch here. I didn't realize this is a big build. Okay, cool. So that was one example. I'm going to walk you through two more examples that are concrete examples of taking data, applying machine learning to that data, AI to that data, and then getting really good results, and help you think through how you could do that to directly judge the performance of an ad in real time as opposed to waiting for the sales cycle. To start with, I'll use the example of this company called Sterling Enterprises. They're a political fundraising agency, so they actually help politicians raise money. And the way they do this is they run a call center and they have a list of everybody who was in the political party that they're trying to raise money for. And they get on the phone, and I'm sure you all get these annoying phone calls all of the time during an election cycle, and they ask you to give money to a candidate of choice, right? Without AI, this is actually pretty hard because what you have is a center with a bunch of people who are passionate about a political stance, operating phones, calling random people, getting hung up on, yelled at all of the time. And the conversion rate of one of those calls is incredibly low. It's like sub 1%, right? But it's still efficient for the candidate to hire the agency to do this task because it gets them money in their pocket, which they can then turn around and spend on awareness and campaign activities, right? With AI, this is actually pretty easy because we can build a model to figure out who's going to donate. So what they did was, they are a data agency at their core because what they have is the data about donors, their past history, their political affiliation. You can read the list. I think they even have information about the types of TV shows that people sometimes watch. And so the first step, and I'm going to try and give this to you in a really concrete recipe, and then I want you to think about how this applies to a generic downstream client and their leads, is they create this list of the attributes that they have about a potential target at the time when they're considering outreaching that lead, right? And then they take a model and they train a model that says, okay, for this candidate, here's a list of people who donated and a list of people who didn't. So they do a little bit of a test. They call 1,000 people, maybe a couple of them convert, and then they train a model to look at the patterns. These are the people who converted, these are the people who didn't. Maybe they even use a past candidate's data that's similar and say, here's the people who donated and here's the people who didn't. And they train a machine learning model, and this is pretty straightforward now. It used to be pretty complex. You'd need a data scientist, but you can literally just pick the outcome of interest, donated, and you can ignore any things you don't have when you're trying to make the decision of if you want to call someone, and you can get a model very quickly that'll tell you how accurately it can predict if someone will donate, and it'll allow you to stack rank them, right? Once you stack rank them, call center gets easy. Just call the one that's most likely to donate first, work your way down the list. Right? Straightforward enough. So what happened? Immediately, their call center had a 2.2x on the amount of money they raised per hour. just by calling people most likely to donate. I mean, if you think about it, we're standing here in, well, I'm standing, you're sitting, but we're here in Las Vegas. This entire city is built on small margins of percentage chance, right? It's the same thing in a lead funnel. If you can tip the odds slightly in your favor, the revenue impact is actually a big multiple downstream of that, and it can be really impactful for your business. So their conversion rate didn't go to 10% or something, right? It only went from like 0.25% to 0.5%. But just by improving that much, it doubled the amount of money they raised every hour. And what did that do? Well, all of the politicians started going to them because they could raise money faster and more cheaply than anyone else, so it 5x'd their business. So it had a downstream multiplier effect, right? And they said it saved them 6 months of effort on trying to figure out who to call that they would normally go through. I think his quote was something like, before this generative AI stuff, he had to do this on his own or with a team, and it took him weeks. Afterwards, he could do it on a flight on his own, like on his laptop while flying. So the message I want to land here is that it's going to get increasingly easy to do these tasks with data. They're no longer these like incredibly complex things you can't attack. We'll give one more example recipe. SEO, right? This is an interesting one because you're working with text. You have a lot of possible headlines, a lot of possible first paragraph content that you could generate. You can use generative AI to create that content, or you can write it yourself. But how do you actually know what's going to work or not in terms of driving ranking at the end of the day? Again, we can apply machine learning and AI to this problem and make it a lot easier. In this example, Ellipsis is an agency that does SEO. They actually did SEO for us and then started using Akkio and made their SEO work for us much better. So it's a really nice partnership. But what they do is they predict the success of a client article to rise up in the Google rankings. I think we all know why SEO can be hard, right? Because you're trying to optimize keywords, you're trying to work against some fuzzy Google algorithm that you don't really understand, that they periodically change. There are skills that you can apply to get better at this, right? But you can also pull down the data to do the task. So let's take a look at how you would do it with AI. First, you just gather all of the content that's currently ranking for your target keywords. And to keep this simple, I'm just going to say H1s, right? What are the headlines of the articles that are currently ranking? How well they're ranking, how poorly they're ranking. You can pull this data down from a lot of systems online. Everyone pretty much has access to this stuff. And then you train another ML model, and you just train it based on ranking, right? So it just predicts the probability that you'll rank in the top 3 articles for those keywords. And it learns the patterns in the headline that cause people to click or not. And it actually takes the text, it's really fascinating how it works, breaks it down into 256 different vectors, encodes it, and then it finds the clumps in that multi-dimensional space that are similar to figure out which components of that text are actually contributing to people being more likely to have a click on the outcome or drive SEO ranking, right? And then, of course, it depends on the content itself underneath it, so you can do this with your first paragraph, with your second paragraph, and so on. And then, okay, so now you have a model that can tell you how good a given title or paragraph of text is. What do you do with it? Well, the next thing you do is you bring generative AI into the equation, and you can generate like 1,000 potential titles, given some examples against the keyword that you're trying to get. You can generate 10,000 potential example titles. And then you can run those titles back through the ML model and just have it stack rank them. Which one's most likely to perform to which one's least likely. And you can take the top performing ones and apply it to your content. Easy enough, right? Because now you can like generate at scale, and then you can use that generated content. And they had great results too. Immediately they saw 4x better performance in their SEO articles that they were creating. And they were able to make them rank faster as well, 3 times faster. So at the end of the day, the message I want to leave you with is that generative BI, the intersection of AI and data, is like really super important for marketing, and it covers a wide range of potential applications, sales funnel optimization, you name it. You can do churn predictions, sort of the works. There's a wide variety of stuff you can offer to your clients here. And if you're not adopting it, you're missing the boat. So it's time to start thinking about how you're going to leverage an AI data strategy in your agency. It's not just a content engine. It goes so much further than that, and you have to think about all the different places it can work. And if you use it, you will see really dramatic results really quickly because you're actually leveraging the data itself in order to drive your decision making, which is sort of the holy grail of marketing that everyone's been chasing. One other key point to leave you with, and you can try this with your data and Akkio. There's a QR code if you're interested. We have a booth at E12 that you can come chat with us about it at. But I just want to leave you with the concept that if you have a lead scoring model that you've built based on people who bought or didn't buy in a business, you can run that same lead scoring model against your current marketing channels in real time. And for every marketing channel that you run it against, you can get a propensity to buy score. Like, what is the average probability that a lead generated by this channel, like Facebook is, going to purchase your product? And then you have your cost of a lead generated on that channel, and you immediately know which of your channels and which of your creative is generating the best return on advertising spend without having to wait for the sales cycle to complete to judge it. That's a massive acceleration in your ability to leverage data and AI to improve your return on advertising spend, right? Okay, that's it. We've got 8 minutes or so left. I'd like to open it up to questions, invite Peter back up.
Go back to that one side. A couple more people wanted to take a screenshot.
Oh, I apologize.
No problem.
I guess I went too fast. There we go.
Grab it. Grab it while you get it. If you have any questions, I'll run that mic to you. But selfishly, I have my first question for you guys. As an agency using a tool like this, do you kind of communicate to the client or let them know, like, hey, we have this tool that we use, or is it you kind of like, this is just a part of what you do, and you kind of say, this is our skill?
Yeah, so we do it both ways, right? I use it as a sale tool, right? Our most recent closed clients, this has been a big part of the pitch that we bring them, is the capability that we're going to build out with it. I have some existing clients that maybe it's operating in the back end. They've seen their new dashboards, but they don't really know all of what's going in. But for all of our new business, it's a big part of the pitch that we're bringing them.
Yeah, that's an important point. It's designed to be white labeled. You can use your own URL for it. You don't have to tell anyone that it's Akkio under the hood. It's designed to give you the right relationship with your client from the bottom. You can build on top of us. That's how we're designed, sort of from the ground up.
And this is back to you on this, when we were playing with the tool as well, the feature did have conversations with it. Is that novel? Like, is that something people use?
We actually started that even before ChatGPT launched. We started back with the old LLMs. We've been building this AI data tool for about 4 years now. I think we were the first to let you chat to transform your data table. So like,
what does that mean?
So like you have some data and you want to do some calculations on it, or you want to, in Excel, you'd need to look up a formula to do something complicated. With us, you can just type in the request, and we'll actually have the large language model write the Python code to do that transformation for you, and then show you the preview of what it's going to do to the data, and you can just say, yeah, apply that. And it makes it like you never have to look up another Excel formula again. You can just get the data into whatever format you need it super easily. And then we extended that into charting too, so you can like show me a chart of anything, and you'll get that chart made for you, and then it's a live data pipeline back to the data source, so you can have a report that just updates automatically. And that's a place where the clients really like it too, because like, imagine all the times you get like a data question as an agency and the client interrupts your like daily work and you got to go like scramble to make an Excel chart to send them or something. Here you can just like send them
Nobody has that experience.
And be like, ask the question yourself, and if you can't get it out of the platform, then come talk to me. I mean, it takes a lot of the load off, and so there's lots of ways that this is going to. My key point here isn't to sell you on Akkio. You can try it. You should pick the best tool for you. My key point is to say that working with data is about to get incredibly easy, and it's going to make everyone's lives better in a bunch of really interesting ways.
That's awesome. Appreciate it. Questions, hands up. I'm going to give this to you.
I have so many questions. One for each of you.
Okay.
I'll leave it there. Okay, so I'm curious about how this fits into a stack with like media mix modeling, and is that a direction this is taking? Because I feel like it's partly that, but it's a little bit kind of, you can take any data as opposed to just like spend and channel data.
Yeah, it's designed, at the beginning we set out to design like the next version of Excel with an AI native approach. Yeah. So at its core, it's designed to be permissive to any type of data problem you might have, across pretty much the whole range of business operation problems. I mean, actually we have, our customers do wild things with it. We have people building crypto price prediction websites and stuff on top of it. But what we realized is like that's still like a little bit too abstract for most people. And so we're in process right now of building like really concrete recipes like A, B, and C. We don't have one for media mix modeling yet, but it is on the roadmap, where you can get immediate value just by like connect this data source, build this particular model, get this value in a way that you don't have to like really think very deeply at all in order to get your first value. But the people who get the most value off it, then once they realize what's possible if you put the tool through its paces in other very custom ways, you can just apply it to pretty much any data problem you have.
I'm going to save my question for you. I'll come find you after. Follow up. Is this also built to kind of be like a profit center for agencies?
Yeah, so some of our agency partners, Peter's an early one of them, actually sell it downstream to their end users if they're not worried about white labeling it, and we do a revenue share on that. Cool. And that lets them continue to capture a share of subscription revenue over time. Sometimes agency engagements are secular. I mean, I've used agencies in every company that I've ever worked in, and it's always been like, 6 months later, job done, what's next, thank you. If you can leave behind a tool that they need to keep using, and if you can get a revenue stream off that, that's a good opportunity. It's a good opportunity for us as a partner as well, because of course then you're helping us find customers and extend our leverage, so we definitely partner in that way. Let us know.
Awesome.
I saw hands coming up over here. Yep. Nothing on this side? Coming up to the front.
Hey, so the closest thing that I've seen to this is something like Data GPT. Familiar with it?
Yeah, where you drop a data file in GPT and interact with it.
Yeah, but it's a similar concept in the saying that you can kind of talk to it in natural language and it'll process your data. Now, to work with that, you need to have a data warehouse to be able to process your data. Is that the case here, or is
it's
this
not?
different?
I mean, we do integrate with data warehouses. You could just throw an Excel file or a CSV in there if you want. We have integrations with CRM, so like HubSpot and Salesforce if you want to pull from there. GA4, Google AdWords, of course BigQuery, Snowflake, and then like SQL databases as well. So our goal at the end of the day is to pull your data from wherever it is with minimal effort on your part, and then let you operate on it. And then we built it permissively so you can push the data back anywhere else. When I worked in marketing, we had multiple systems that the data was generated in. It needed to be pulled from each of them, joined together, and then used to make decisions, right? And that's a workflow we enabled in the tool. So you could do merging. You can pull data from multiple sources, and you can push it to a third source that isn't even that. So you could use us as a pipeline to a data warehouse if you wanted. So it's pretty flexible. That's the objective. And then the thing we spent the longest time building, actually, was the ML engine that lets you build those models and surface the driving factor analysis. That was the first thing we set out to build. I don't know if that helps, but hopefully so.
That's exactly what I want to know. Thank you.
Cool.
Is it completely do it ourselves, like once we sign up on your website, or do you give any kind of support in terms of implementation?
So, sorry, can you speak a little closer to the mic?
So now if we sign up on your website, so is it something that we need to do by ourselves?
Yeah. So we're, the core design principle that I apply to the product is it should be self-serve. You should be able to figure it out on your own, and it should be easier than trying to figure out using Excel. The platform's open. You can go sign up and make an account. We give you a full free 2-week trial. You can throw data in there and use it to your heart's content. Or you can chat with us and we'll help you out. My asymptotic vision of this platform is completely self-serve and very easy is going to take a long while to reach. I think we're ahead of the pack in terms of ease of use, but if you need help, we're there to help, and we're happy to help.
Okay, thank you.
One last question for the gentleman.
Hi, just a quick question kind of in terms of creative. From what I understand what you guys said, and sorry if I missed it, this is more kind of data, like when you're looking at creatives and kind of, what one performed the best. Does the platform currently have any capabilities to kind of tell you okay, well, based on maybe the last 6 or 10 creatives you've run, obviously they hit ad fatigue at some point. Here are, certain types of creative that you should be creating in the future to replicate that success that you've had so far, type of thing.
Yeah, generally, and the only issue I'll take is six examples may not be sufficient, but if you can show if you can show it past patterns, it will learn them and then tell you what the driving factors it can extract are. So you can see this has given the past patterns this much positive impact on the probability of performance. This has this much negative impact on the probability of performance, and then you can apply those you can apply the model you built to downstream creative and judge its probable outcome of performance And then the only problem is, how do you write a perfect piece of creative? And the easy answer there is, you don't have to. You can just generate thousands of them and run them against the model to figure out which one looks like it's going to be the best, given your past performance. So the simple way to think about it is, show it past patterns, apply it to future creative, sort the creative by like what worked in the past, and it'll work in the future. And then, of course, there's an age limit to that. So as the environment changes, you'll want to train the model again. We have automatic retraining and stuff like that to help with that. But you don't want to go 3 years on the same model, because, of course, what people are interested in changes. So you'll have to pull new data periodically to do the task.
Got it. And then it doesn't create the creative for you, right?
It doesn't, no. We don't generate the creative. We help you evaluate how it'll perform.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone. You can find us at the show. We'll be around, happy to talk. So,
Clap it up, guys. Well done.
thank you.